As long as we fail forward, right? Meaning we'll make mistakes and things might not go as planned, but we're not going to give up. We're going to use each opportunity to learn from a failure. Because if you just persist, you're going to be successful. It is literally inevitable.
Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate, here. This is the place to find inspiring stories of world-changing women and girls every single week. We have a new, unique story coming your way every single week, so make sure that you subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com. To find all of our over 185 episodes of the podcast. Please listen to all of them and share them. Watch our Emmy-nominated documentaries. Donate to our nonprofit organization to help us continue our critical work to elevate women's voices and their stories, and so much more. Go to onegirlrevolution.com today. Today on the One Girl Revolution podcast, I welcome Jerelyn Roriquez, co-founder of The Knowledge House. The Knowledge House was founded in 2014 to close the gaps in the education to employment pipeline by leading digital skills trainings in coding and design for underserved young people in the Bronx. And now they're across the country with hubs in Newark, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. The Knowledge House combines technology training, career support, and a comprehensive network of partners to help disconnected job seekers secure rewarding careers in the tech economy and become financially independent. The Knowledge House aims to lift entire communities and families out of poverty by creating a pipeline of talented and capable workers equipped with the technology and skills that provide economic opportunity, living wages, and career mobility. It's absolutely incredible what they're doing, and I can't wait to see how they continue to grow and evolve and grow this amazing organization across our country and around the world. Jerelyn joins the One Girl Revolution podcast to share her inspiring life story and how her work in education and community organizing led her to see the gaps in our world and the need for the Knowledge House. She talks about the incredible work of the Knowledge House, stories of people that have been served through their incredible work, and how their work is changing the lives of young people and those in need of careers and support. Jerelyn is an amazing woman, and the Knowledge House is truly changing the world every single day. Here is the new episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast featuring Jerelyn Roriquez of the Knowledge House. Jerelyn, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on and can't wait to share all about the Knowledge House and all of the great work that you are doing. And I know it's grown and evolved so much in a few short years. So I can't wait to talk about all of that. But before we get into the work that you're doing and before we get into the Knowledge House, I would love to rewind a little bit. This podcast is all about the evolution of organizations, the evolution of the person. And so I would love to hear a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and your life before the Knowledge House.
So I started the Knowledge House almost 10 years ago with my co-founder, Joe Carano. And 10 years ago, I was working in education. Like after college, I was working in education as a student organizer, as a ed policy advocate, a parent organizer. And what I found is that I care a lot about education. Like my mom, my sister, all teachers. So I grew up surrounded by teachers. And I was really excited to work in education. But I found that, especially when I was working in the field, it was during a time where education leaders were pushing low-income youth to go to college and like college only, right? So they were like supporting a college or a bus myth. And I knew it was not true because college worked for me, like college worked for a lot of my friends, but college did not work for a lot of my family members, right? And so just this push for one pathway and one pathway only that leads to a successful life was frustrating enough for me to leave education and then focus on alternative pathways. You know, I knew that you could go to trade school, you can go to vocational school, you could go to the military, and you can still end up with a high paying job. And so I thought that it was really important for low income youth, especially, to know college is not the only option, right? Even if data says if you go to college, you will have a successful career, it's not the only option. So I started focusing on alternative pathways, and I was paying attention to technology because, you know, I understood that you do not need a 4-year degree to have a high paying job in tech. You can have a certification. Again, you can go to a trade school. And 10 years ago, that's when all the for-profit boot camps started growing. So you can go to a boot camp and really get a high paying job after that. So that's when I pivoted. I went into entrepreneurship. I was thinking about starting nonprofits that would tackle this issue. And it's interesting because as I was problem solving and thinking about starting a new profit, that's when I bumped into my co-founder. So my co-founder, Joe Perano, he's currently our CTO. But 10 years ago when I met him, he was a community manager at the first Bronx business incubator that ever set up, right? Incubators and accelerators are popular now, but back then the Bronx only had one. And I was so lucky to bump into my co-founder because at this incubator that he ran, there were so many tech entrepreneurs, and it was something like I've never seen before. These were folks working in digital marketing, engineering, AR, VR, and they literally chose to have their offices in the Bronx, right? They could have went to downtown Manhattan, but they really wanted to keep the innovation in the Bronx. And I was really inspired by that. These entrepreneurs also really wanted to give back. So it was like my co-founder, who's also a self-taught programmer, you know, he already was mobilizing businesses, and these were tech startups that wanted to give back, right? And on my end, I was working as a teacher, community organizer, and I wanted to make sure that young people had access to high-paying careers. So it's like when we both met, it was like, ooh, Knowledge House is the overlap, right? So I started looking for community nonprofits to support whatever we were trying to do. And he already had the entrepreneurs, right? So we partnered with a nonprofit called The Points, and it's like an arts and culture organization. So we partnered with them. They offered space, they offered laptops. And in 2014, I think that March, you know, we set up shop at The Point, and we promoted a program for young adults in the Bronx that would teach them tech skills and then help them get internships. And then Joe, you know, he went to all of those tech entrepreneurs in his network, and he had them teach the classes every Saturday. So Joe taught coding because he's a self-taught programmer. I taught career stuff, right? Because I'm not a technologist. But then we had one entrepreneur teach digital marketing. Another entrepreneur taught 3D printing, right? And so we basically had an intro to tech program for 10 weeks. And at the end of the 10 weeks, we had a maker fair, which is really like a demo day. Each student created their own project that helped solve a community problem, whether it was a website or like a 3D print of something. And then they presented that. And then after that event, you know, 3 out of 4 of those students were able to land an internship. And so that was the first program. And that's how we got started, right? So my frustration with the education system, me seeing my co-founder as a role model and thinking we need to replicate his experience. And then me and my co-founder bringing our resources from the Bronx together.
That's incredible. And just using your own experiences. I love when we can look back at our life and say, oh my gosh, these are all the little puzzle pieces, right? Like even you guys knowing each other and like just having these experiences and experiencing education firsthand and then saying, look, this isn't for everyone. And I feel like recently things are starting to change where people are starting to realize like, oh, that 4-year college degree didn't necessarily get me anywhere. I could have just gone through some sort of trade or program school or something to learn. And that's really what you've created. So what was the reason, or what was the moment? So you're working out of the points. And then what was the moment where you were like, we're really on to something. We need to found our own organization and really like go all in.
I mean, honestly, when we saw that 75% of those participants took the next step, right? Like that was enough for us. Because our hunch was that like there's already a lot of tech training out there, well, 10 years ago, but it focused on like computer repair. You know what I mean? Or like the maintenance of internet networks, etc. But we didn't find opportunities for our young people to actually create technology, right? Not just use it or maintain it, like literally create it. And so it was just so important for us to see that our students can design something from scratch or code something from scratch, and that that was meaningful to them, right? So the fact that they each created something and it was something that gave back to their community and it was something of value, like they used a new tech skill to create solutions, um, that just showed us, wow, we achieved this with 10 participants. Imagine if we get to 100 participants, right? Then literally the Knowledge House can start creating solutions for communities, solve community problems. And so we were sold. We were sold. Uh, I think like in the next year, what got really hard was like sustaining the interest, you know, like we had schools, we had the general public interested, but as we tried to fundraise from philanthropy, we hit a lot of blockers, you know. So me and my co-founder were pretty sold. As long as the community wanted this and we actually saw the results, we were like, yeah, this is it. But then convincing others was harder.
Yeah, that seems to be like a regular thread of anybody that I have on this podcast where it's like I had the idea, I also had proof of concept, right? Where you see the vision for it and you're like, I know that this can be something big, but getting from like step 1 to step 2 and getting people's buy-in there, that's the most difficult part. But you saw it, you saw all these 10 young people and what they were able to accomplish and what they were doing. And so I'm sure that that was the thing that fueled the fire. So I know that you've come so far since you first started, since that first year. You obviously finally got from that point one or step 1 to step 2, and now you're just flying, I feel like. And I know there's so much farther that you want to go and so much that's percolating, and I can't wait to get into all of that. But for people that are listening, what is the Knowledge House? What does it look like now? Talk to me about the programming and all the great things that you're doing today.
Absolutely. So the Knowledge House mission is to empower and sustain a pipeline of technologists who will uplift their communities. So essentially, we are matching job seekers and youth to economic mobility, right? We've started this in the South Bronx where we're headquartered. And now we have job training programs in Newark, New Jersey, Los Angeles, California, and Atlanta, Georgia. The Knowledge House offers 2 core programs. We have a high school level program and adult job training that focus on code and design. So for the high school program, it's called the Kareem Karbush Coding Fellowship. High school students enroll in that program. They complete summer instruction where they learn about coding websites. So they learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. They learn graphic design and UX, UI as well, so that they are designing the wireframe of a website. They're thinking about colors, right? They're thinking about externally presenting this. And then after about 6 to 8 weeks of instruction, they leave with a multi-page website, right? They present that, and then they are on track to graduate. And after summer instruction, we offer monthly workshops for the high school students to do some college planning. If for some reason they're not on a college track, then we help them land enrichment programs or an internship in tech. But the expectation is that a year after summer instruction, they are pursuing their next step. So they might be graduating and matriculating into college and they want to study STEM, right? Or a lot of our graduates go into this advanced program called Google Code Next. And then they keep reinforcing their coding skills after the Knowledge House. For the adult job training program, it's much more intensive. It's called the Innovation Fellowship. It's a year-long program where our applicants are coming in sometimes as beginners, like they are new to computers, right? Sometimes, especially during the pandemic, we've had more college students enroll in the program. Like college students right now, they're like, I know tech is everywhere. My college might not be preparing me for the careers that are out there, so I have to do something else, right? So applicants come to the Knowledge House. The average starting salary is like $14,000, right? They enroll in a year long of job training. And then after the program, we get 75% of the graduates into their first job in tech. And then we get them a full-time job in tech, right? So for us, the North Star is always a full-time job. And then for those in full-time jobs, the average salary right now is close to $80,000. So we're talking about folks going from 14,000 to 80,000 because of our program. And when they are in the program, they're doing evening job training, right? So from 5:30 to 9:30, Monday through Thursdays, they're in class. Monday through Wednesdays, they have their tech class, and students get to choose between studying data science, cybersecurity, web development, or user experience, user interface, right? And then every Thursday is career class. So students get both technical instruction, technical upskilling, and professional development, right? And while they're in class Monday through Thursday, they have intense homework assignments to do outside of class. And on the weekends, they're spending time with our industry partners, right? So we do a lot of corporate engagement so that on the weekends, our students are receiving tutoring or mentorship from industry volunteers, right? Or they're going to tech events like hackathons to, reinforce their skills. So all of this is happening for a good 12 months. And then as part of instruction, we sometimes work with our employer partners to create custom like internship opportunities or match students to apprenticeships. So before the 12 months is over, ideally students are either having their like part-time job or like a gig, or they're in an internship. And if not, they have to do certification prep. So we offer all students at the Knowledge House an opportunity to secure a certification free of cost. We pay for everything. So the goal is by the time they finish the program, they have a work portfolio, right? They've done a lot of interview prep. They've already networked with the tech industry. So they're building connections, creating connections. And they have a certification portfolio. So that's the program there.
That's amazing. And I love that it's so multifaceted, right? Sometimes people have like a program where it's like, all right, cool. You came and took a class. I'm like, bye. Took a class for a couple of weeks, but it's multifaceted where it's building this community, the support system for everyone who's walking through. They can stay in touch with you. They can keep going through the programming. And then also you're helping them transition out and get jobs in this field. And I want to say too, so I got my master's in public affairs and political communication many moons ago. And a couple of my classes were in tech, and they were like, look, you might just go into PR, which is what I did. So all I do is write and do podcasting and that kind of stuff. But we had to learn how to build a website. We had to learn graphic design. We had to learn about branding. And you mentioned a lot of those things. People don't realize, but in this day and age, I feel like you can't have any job without having some knowledge of those. And so it's probably cool for you where it's like, yeah, people can, of course, go on to get these great full-time gigs. But also if they go into the nonprofit space, if they go work for some corporation, anywhere that you go, these are skills that you need to know in this day and age.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. And like we've seen with our students that after our training, they might go work in tech, but not in the area that they studied. So just the fact that tech instruction can offer like a variety of transferable skills is definitely true. And our students are leveraging that because the market has become super competitive, right? But we're seeing that our students are becoming technical content writers or product managers or project managers. You know what I mean? So, like you said, I think because tech involves managing a project, design thinking, and like tracking data, like those are skills every average worker needs to know.
Watch One Girl Revolution's Emmy nominated short documentary, The Girl Inside, on our YouTube channel or at onegirlrevolution.com. The Girl Inside features a poignant look at the stories of incarcerated women within Cook County Jail and a life-changing academic course taught by Dr. Laura Biaggi called Storytelling as a Healing Art. This short documentary reunites Dr. Biaggi with 5 of her former students for a special one-day course on the transformative power of our stories and our voices. And what is revealed is the girl inside. Watch the Emmy-nominated short documentary The Girl Inside today on YouTube or at onegirlrevolution.com. How do your students get connected to you? I'm sure it's a whole lot of different ways, but how do you get connected to them, or how do they get connected to you?
So after, 9 years, going on to 10 years, luckily a lot of students know about the Knowledge House through word of mouth, you know, especially before the pandemic. We had our recruitment and outreach team host weekly info sessions in person, right? And so we do a lot of community outreach. In addition to our own info sessions, the team is out at computer science fairs or career fairs, or a lot of elected officials have like community events, right? Where they can connect with families and build relationships with these electeds. And so all of that work has helped us build a reputation so that every year folks are literally just waiting for the application to start, to like launch, right? So now we have an alumni referral system where if our alums refer applicants, they get a gift card, they get recognized, and that helps. So all of that has happened since day one. But then, of course, with the pandemic, we had to pivot and be even more creative. So now all that in-person stuff happens, but in addition, we do a lot of paid ads, whether it's digital ads on social or billboards or like bus shelters. And because we are, new to our expansion sites, we definitely need to invest in paid advertising there, right? So we've had much success with bus shelters and like billboards in Atlanta and Los Angeles. So all of that helps. But what I've realized is the partnerships that we form with schools, with churches, with government agencies are the most meaningful right now, because at the end of the day, one of these partners can refer students to us. But in the case that the Knowledge House does not provide a wraparound service like housing, for example, it is so critical for us to partner with like a nonprofit that does provide housing, right? Because that nonprofit can refer applicants to us and then can help with housing services.
See, and that's a really important thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because even there's more power when organizations partner together, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't need to recreate the wheel, and I also don't need to be everything to every person, but I'm going to stay in my lane, know the work that I'm doing, like the Knowledge House, but what are students' needs? What are things that we can help them with, whether it's housing or bills or other kind of supports and things that they need, transportation, right? There are so many different needs that people have. And I'm sure that a lot of the students that you're working with too, especially in the cities that you're in, they have a lot of things that they need. It's not just like, oh, I want to do this program, cool, let me fill out the paperwork. It's like, okay, well, how do I get there? Is there a bus service? I don't have a car, or I need somebody to drop me off. And so you're probably seeing that. And so it's great that you're able to partner with so many other organizations.
Absolutely. And like, it just helps us like try to diversify tech or try to diversify corporate America, like as a collective, because I do find nonprofits already don't work together enough. But imagine if we did, we would be like helpful to other sectors, So I think that you're spot on. And it's made us do the work better, because our students have had challenges since the pandemic and they're still persisting. So as we're recovering from COVID, it's so important to have a holistic approach and to provide as many student supports as possible.
Yeah, and the needs are so great in our world where, in every single city, in every single community, I'm in Detroit, I know you're in the Bronx, and, I think about my neighbors and things that people are going through, and their need is so great. And that's only going to be solved if we can stick together and support one another, individuals, of course, but also organizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this podcast is all about stories. Obviously, I wanted to have you on to share your story and talk about the Knowledge House, but is there a story or two that you could share about the power of the Knowledge House? So maybe a student or two that have gone through that you just saw a transformation, or you feel like their story really embodies the power of the work that you're doing.
The one story that immediately popped in my head was Jennifer Paulino's story. So Jennifer is one of our graduates, probably from like 2018. And she's top of mind because she is like the student profile that we've designed our program for. So she is someone that went to community college for a few semesters and then had to drop out due to financial aid, other issues. But she was that student that wanted to go to college, just could not finish, and she was looking for an alternative pathway. She was working as a receptionist at an optical in the Bronx, and she somehow found our recruitment flyer like at her job one day, right? Shout out to the recruitment team, flyering at opticals and other stores, right? But she said, okay, this is different. I like computers. I'm not in college. I should be making more money. And so she pursued the Knowledge House programs. And she actually did like several programs, right? So like she not only did the web development program, she did the data program as well. And what was so special about Jennifer is that she came to the Knowledge House when like we still were serving mostly males than females. And it was like Jennifer's class turned that all around because she was the rock star in her class. So not only did Jennifer graduate and she became a rock star, so she became a full stack web developer at the Department of Education, right? And then recently she moved on to become a software engineer at this startup called Kimi. They basically create like copies of keys. And so she engineers the like portals used for that. And it's so interesting because not only was she successful, and we've already seen her advance from one job to another, but for the Knowledge House, once our girls saw her be successful, they started talking about the program and more girls started to apply, right? And then slowly but surely, we became 50% women. And of course, Jennifer was still giving back. She was working and she was still coming back to teach a class, to mentor students, to speak at events, and all of that made the difference. So not only was she successful herself, but her success impacted the organization in a major way. And so today, I'm so proud of Jennifer because she says that she is the only engineer on her team that does not have a college degree. And she is the team leader. So she literally is the lead engineer for a team of computer science graduates, and she does not have a college degree. So not only did I see her leadership like really blossom, but she gets to be a leader at her company. And she doesn't have a traditional story. So I love Jennifer's story. I wish her so much luck. And like, without her even knowing it, she's made such a huge impact in her community already. So that's Jennifer.
I
Um,
love that story. It's the ripple effect, right? Like here's this
100%.
one, and I love those stories where it's like here's one girl revolution
Yeah,
stepping up and doing it, and then she starts talking about it, and other women and girls see her and say, "Oh my gosh, I could do that. That's amazing."
100%, 100%. Um, Clarissa is another story that's top of mind because she is one of our more recent graduates. But what's interesting about Clarissa is, she came here as an immigrant. So she has another non-traditional background where like she came in as an English language learner, didn't have a lot of experience using computers, but she found the Knowledge House, and she took a chance. And it took her a good 12 months to become proficient, but she still was working on her confidence. So like it was time for her to look for jobs, and like she was a little shy about it. So what's great is that one of our board members, like at the Knowledge House, was her mentor. Like he kind of took Clarissa under his wing. And I love this story because it just shows how like when you have multiple support systems, it leads to a positive outcome. So through this mentorship, she was encouraged to go out and look. And she was like talking to one of our corporate partners that was big with volunteering. So I guess Energy Hub, where she's at now, they had some touch point with the Knowledge House Fellows, including Clarissa. So Clarissa asked for a job. She said, I want to work here. What do I do? Do I apply? What do I do? She took the initiative. She got an interview, you know? And so she became a software engineer at Energy Hub. Um, and what she is most proud of is one, she overcame her fear, right? Because she had a lot of imposter syndrome. But now that she's in her role, she's excited because she says that her mother could like retire early, you know? Um, as you know, like often immigrants come to this country and they have to work to take care of the entire household, to take care of family members. And so for the first time, like Clarissa can say, Mom, you don't have to work anymore. I am making enough money for the whole household. And so, that's another story where you see like how our work can have like generational impact, right? Woman to woman. So those are two stories that keep me going every single day.
Yeah, those are such powerful stories, and I think it's so important that you brought up the immigrant story because that's another thing that we don't talk about, right? Like we talk about immigration as like a political issue, and at One Girl we stay away from that. We stay focused on our commonality, but here you're actually providing a solution. And I know so many people even that immigrate here and send money back home, right? Or they're trying to just create a better life for their families, or like when we're talking about women, right? Like their life may change and they may have a kid and want to stay home. And now, especially when you're talking about technology, there's so many more opportunities for women to work from home or have flexibility if they want to travel and go do. I have a couple of friends that do that where they go and rent an Airbnb and work from wherever, and just stay and do their job. And you're creating so many. I'm thinking about my mind is now going like crazy thinking about all the different opportunities. You're creating opportunities for people, for human beings, all different ages, all different backgrounds, to really create an amazing life for themselves.
That's our job, that's what we have to do. So it's a privilege to be able to like do it. And like what's great is, in our startup years, me and my co-founder had a super small team, like we wanted to do so much, but we couldn't. But we finally feel like we're well resourced enough to like keep sustaining the impact that we are creating for many more people. And it feels really good to like be here in this part of the journey.
Yeah, well, you're such a great example to so many people. And I hope that everyone who's listening, if they have an idea or a dream, or maybe they're right in the middle of it, right? Maybe they're from that step one, trying to get to step two and trying to find funding for something, that they should look at you and look at the Knowledge House and say, look, they did it, I can do it. Or somebody has a dream, that there are so many opportunities out there. It's just finding it. And so I can't wait to see where you go from here, where the Knowledge House goes from here. So where do you go from here? In your dream of dream worlds, I'm sure that so many things about your journey and the Knowledge House's journey has surprised you, but where do you hope in your dream of dream worlds the Knowledge House goes from here?
So the next step for the Knowledge House really is to go deeper where we're at. Like we're focusing a lot on sustainability, especially because, unfortunately, we were forced to grow during the pandemic. And so now we have the opportunity to truly build relationships, strengthen the connections that we've made during the pandemic, right? Now things are open, everyone is in person. So we want to become a brand name in New Jersey, Georgia, and California, the same way that people really recognize our brands in New York. So with that, we intend to go a little more wider in New York. So we've expanded into Westchester, and we have partnerships with like the Yonkers Public Library to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible in New York. But it means that for Newark, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, we want to increase enrollment. The past 18 months, we've started small. So we've had about 30 to 50 participants in each of those regions, and we would love to get to 100, 200, So we want to get to a place that within 3 years, we can serve more than 500 students each year, right? That would be game changing for us. And then we want to grow from there. It means that to sustain our growth, not only are we increasing the number of participants, but we're focusing on like org culture, professional development for staff, making sure that we are providing more role clarity. And it means a lot of standardization, like as we grow, we need to refresh job descriptions, handbooks, memos, and policies. And so I'm excited to dive into the next phase of this work because it will inform where we go next, whether it's another city or 3 more cities, or whether it's like, let's just have an online platform and meet everyone where they're at. So we're excited about all of that.
Well, I really can't wait to see where you go from here. And I can't wait to continue to follow and just see all of the programming and all of the successes of all of your students too. I'm sure that a lot of times you feel like a proud mama where you see all of your students, or maybe you don't hear from them for a while and then you find out that they got some like great job or promotion. It must be really, really exhilarating to have those experiences.
Absolutely, because that's usually how it happens. I won't hear from someone for a while, and then all of a sudden, they have a 6-figure job somewhere. And I'm like, yes, I love that. I love that. I love that.
I love that. And I can't wait to continue to see where they all go.
Donate to One Girl Revolution's nonprofit organization to help us continue our work, highlighting inspiring women and girls that are changing the world through their lives, promoting their work and their organizations, and building a powerful and positive force out in the world dedicated to empowering women, their voices, and their stories. Donate at onegirlrevolution.com/donate. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com/donate.
So I have this is kind of a personal question about like the spark within you, Jerelyn. If you could get to the very root of what the driving force, why you get up every day and do the work that you do with the Knowledge House, what would you say that root is? Is it your educational background? Is it the students that you see that fuels you? What's the root?
I think it's a combination of how I was raised, and like the gratitude that my graduates express once they are in a great job, right? And so I think both really like make me who I am. My mom as an educator, she made sure that a high quality education was priority for me and that I understood why it needs to be priority for others, right? I truly understand that folks become empowered, they have agency once they are educated. I think what I've been trying to advocate for is that the education doesn't need to be traditional, right? It just needs to lead to positive life outcomes. And so the graduates that call me once they're in a high paying job, or once like they see their parents retire early, like hearing those stories keep me going, because I know that I have a calling to do this work, but to see the actual data helps too, right? To see the actual examples, because it just proves what's possible. And so those two things really give me energy.
Well, you are proving what's possible every single day, and your students are too. And I know that you're a beacon of light, and all of your students are beacons of light to so many people. And again, it's that ripple effect, right? When you empower people through education or through some of these classes and things that you're doing, it leads to freedom. Like freedom was the word that came to mind when you're just speaking there. Is like you're actually providing people with freedom, financial freedom, freedom to live their lives in the way that they want, and like to support their families. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what can people do to support your work? I want everybody who's listening to get involved in what you're doing at the Knowledge House. Obviously, some people may be local, some people might not be local. I always say on this podcast that the free and easy way to get involved is to follow on social media and share. So share different posts for you. What are other ways that people can get involved?
There are so many ways for folks to get involved. First, you mentioned it. Please add us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We are on all of the social channels, and we're pretty active. Also, we are always looking for volunteers year-round. Whether you are an industry professional that is a technologist or not a technologist, we are always looking for folks to mentor. We are looking for folks to review resumes. We're looking for folks to provide interview prep, right? And so if you are a technologist, or if you lead HR, or if you lead a tech team, there are so many ways to plug you into the program so that you meet talent, so that y'all can hire, provide curricular feedback. So we are always looking for folks to get involved. It is very simple to sign up to be a volunteer or supporter. You just go to knowledgehouse.org and contact us. And then, of course, if folks are interested in becoming a champion and providing a gift, a donation, an in-kind donation, or a very small or big gift, we have a donate button on our website. And we are always looking for champions to, help us spread the word, meet our students, and connect us to resources.
I will post all of the links to your social media channels and also your website so people can easily find it, easily get in touch with you, and just get to know more about the Knowledge House. What can people do to emulate your work? So, people might be working in a tech industry, and maybe what comes to mind is like giving somebody a chance, right? Like giving a young person who has a passion, or maybe who has a certification, or maybe has taken some classes. What would you say that we all can do to emulate the work that you're doing at the Knowledge House?
It's a really good question. And I think it's all about being asset-based. You know what I mean? When you're doing charity work, very often you can be deficit-based when you're talking about a needy population, right? Or job seekers that need high-paying jobs. But at the end of the day, the students I serve are special because they're like so talented. They've done so much with a little bit, you know what I mean? And so in those ways, sometimes they're more resilient, they have more endurance. They're more creative with their problem solving, right? And so I think companies should really see all of those things as assets, right? I think it's so important to think about all of the contributions that someone can provide a company because they are unique and because they have a different experience. You can learn from the students that I serve. They will have a different approach to building products. They will have a different approach to building products for people of color. And the tech sector needs that desperately, right? Especially as we think about the future of tech. and automation and machine learning and AI, it is going to be so critical that the folks building products for tomorrow look like Black and brown people, right? Because at some point, um, Black and brown people might literally be the majority in this country, right? So we need to start now making sure that they are leaders and creating technology, creating products that everyday people use. And so I think, yeah, just um, think of all of the benefits to giving non-traditional talent a chance.
You are such a great example. The Knowledge House is such a great example. And I also encourage anyone who has a dream to go for it. Like if you want to get in tech or you're interested, take a class. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to quit your job tomorrow and like pour yourself into some new career. But if you're interested in something like that, or graphic design or branding, whatever your hope and dream is. And you mentioned so many different things that your students get experience with. But if you're out there and you're listening and you have a hope or a dream and you want to dip your toe into one of those industries, go for it. Because like you said, we need you. We need more people out there, especially young people. Jerelyn, you are a one girl revolution. Obviously, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. I know that so many of the women and girls that are going through the Knowledge House are also one girl revolutions and who work with you. So I want to just give a shout out to all of those one girl revolutions. This podcast is obviously, highlighting one woman who's doing amazing stuff, but there's always an army behind every woman and standing next to every woman too. So I want to give a shout out to them. But who's a one girl revolution in your life? Who is a woman or girl that inspires you?
So Reshma Saujani has been a long-term mentor and a role model for me. One of my last jobs before the Knowledge House was as a community organizer. And I was working on Reshma Saujani's political campaign when she was running for New York City Public Advocate. And if you don't know Reshma Saujani, she is also the founder of Girls Who Code. So it was great to work so closely with her because, of course, she is a tech advocate, a tech evangelist, tech leader. And a few years ago, she was running for public office. And I got to see her juggle her election with starting a nonprofit. And I was very inspired by that, It at least provided me with a model, like I can move into entrepreneurship despite my previous experience, right? Being a community organizer, educator, etc. But I also just was inspired by someone who does not identify as a technologist, becoming a tech leader and creating pathways for people, especially people that look like her, right? Girls Who Code focuses on women going into tech careers. And so I thought Reshma can do it. If she can do it, I can do it, right? And so her path towards leadership and getting the buy-in of the public sector and then starting a movement for women to get into tech was so inspiring. And how she managed to do multiple things, also inspiring. What she's done most recently, because of the pandemic and the challenges that came, is that she launched something called the Marshall Plan. And it actually focuses on moms, who were either laid off because of COVID or they had, issues with childcare because they had to work from home. And she's focusing on making sure that companies are inclusive of mothers, especially mothers that need flexibility, And so the idea of a woman leading not only one movement, but two, totally inspiring. So Reshma Saujani, everything she does inspires me. She inspired me to start the Knowledge House. And I've just been watching her every move since then. So she's my girl one revolution.
I love it. I love it so much. And she is a one girl revolution. I'm very familiar with Girls Who Code and have followed, but now I'm going to be watching her even more closely because I didn't know about some of the things that you mentioned. But That's amazing. And the work that she's doing is so important. And I love that you shared too about the work that she's doing for mothers, because it's such an important thing in our world, important discussion for us to have. Jerelyn, it has been so great getting to know you and having you on the podcast. But before I let you go, I always end this podcast on one question. So I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
I always tell entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, never give up. Like it's so simple, but it's so real, because for us female entrepreneurs, we will have obstacles, you know? There are already so many biases when it comes to females fundraising or females stepping into the CEO role. But we're all superwomen, you know? And so I think as long as we fail forward, right? Meaning we'll make mistakes and things might not go as planned, but we're not going to give up. We're going to use each opportunity to learn from a failure. Because if you just persist, you're going to be successful. It is literally inevitable. You just don't stop and you just keep going. And this is something that I wish, you know, someone told me when I first became an entrepreneur, because there were so many times where I wanted to give up. And the only reason I'm here and the only reason the Knowledge House is as big as it is because I never gave up.
Those are such important words for all the women and girls that are listening in whatever scenario they're living right now, but to never give up. And I just feel like you're always one step away from greatness. And you probably have many different chapters of the Knowledge House that you could point to and say, and you shared some of them on this podcast, where it's like, if I had given up, like I still would have accomplished some things, but I'm so glad that you never gave up. You continue to power through. Like I said before, I can't wait to see where the Knowledge House goes from here. We're going to be following and supporting you in any way that we possibly can to promote all your great work. I will put your website, your social media, all the things that you mentioned in the show notes so people can easily find it. But Jerelyn, thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I really appreciate you inviting me and telling our story. So thank you so much.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number One Girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.